Okay, so now on the 46 Dodge, I'm working on the front end still to some degree, and probably going to start working on the right fender. I got the hood propped up on about a 3/4 inch block. I just want to kind of show you how it goes together. I'm going to have to get some more clearance in down here in that area. Maybe take away some of that lip down there. And one of the results of the fender being bent when I started was when I straightened it, it ended up being up in the air a little bit. You can see there's a gap. It's probably 3/4 of an inch or 1 inch. And I already fixed my the side of my like rocker panel, you know, and it's a little bit too low now. So now I got to probably raise it up another 3/4 of an inch. I tried to keep 4 1/4 inches as my chop all the way around, and looks like that didn't work out, because when I straightened the fender, because the fender was all bent, I must have bent the back of it up a little bit, or the front end just didn't line up the same way. So anyways, I guess I got to do that over. So I'm going to start reproducing on this right side what I did to the left side, and weld that whole thing up. I have a little bit of work to do on the left side because some of the welding I got a little too hot. Maybe about an inch of it I need to fix. Okay, so here I am with my latest find. I found a 2006 Mini Cooper S hood, and I got 2 headlights coming. And this was only $45, and the headlights are $200. And I had bought this ring before. It was like $20. I was trying it out. It seemed like I could probably get that to work, and that's why I picked this. And somebody did a nice job with that front end to find that on the internet. So I'm going to try to do something like that and get it to fit on here. So I guess first of all I'll have to figure out where I'm going to place those on this front end. So the first thing I'm going to do is to make a white template out of paper, and I'll stick that onto the that paneling I have over there, and I'll cut a ring, and then I can lay it on top of the fender and try to figure out if I can get it pretty close. And then after that, I'm going to have, once I get the headlights, I'm going to have to point them and see if when I place it on the fender like that, if it's going to point in the right direction, because I have a feeling I'm going to end up having to move the bulbs, and I don't think they're adjustable. So I cut this ring out, and I'm trying to see where there's a gap, and I put this pretty high, but this is the nicest place as far as how it matches up. You can see there's a gap there, and then the rest of it's pretty good. I mean, barely any light at all anywhere else. So I just have to build up that one edge. Now the thing about it is it's kind of high, and the angle I don't think is the same as what this hood is down here. So once I get the headlights and I get them pointed to where they're pointed according to what the inspection law says, then I'll know what angle the hood's on, and then I can figure out what angle, you know, this ring is, and I can figure out where this ring's supposed to be. But it may be worth me cutting the bulbs out of the back of the headlight and maybe cocking them down a little bit and making brackets. So while I'm waiting on my headlights to come in, I'm working on this back of this fender, just tacking and tacking and tacking and blowing it with air all the time, and some of it's kind of ugly because the metal's extremely thin, but I'm getting there and it's not warping. So that's the way it goes. Some people can just blow down through there and fusion it together, but I got to just tack it all. Okay, so I got the welding done on part of it. And I dollied it out. It's fairly close. Now I'm going to move on to some other holes. I got a hole down there. I got a lip that's kind of weak and needs some new metal here. And then there's some holes coming through right there, and this will all be gone. So I got my headlights in, and this one fits pretty good. Pretty happy with that. And it does have an adjustment. I believe it's on the low beam. I've heard that the high beams are like really low because they're so bright on these. So I'm going to have to see where the high beam points and then see if I can adjust the low beam to get me to a spot where I'm in a happy medium. As you can see, this doesn't line up, so apparently
they took a pretty good hit to this hood, which I only bought for 45 bucks, so I think I can afford to take some time and pound on it with a hammer before I cut it up, get it to fit nice. And then I'm going to align the headlights, figure out what angle I'm on, and then transfer that angle onto the truck. So I welded these two bolts in here, and I had this chain on here, and I was yanking this in some to straighten it out, because whenever they wrecked this, it was bent out about 1/8 of an inch. So there it is now that I've bent it back in some, and I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to chop it out and see if I can get it on the inside of the fender. So on these Mini Cooper lights, this bulb up here at the top, that's the low beam. Which I'm kind of surprised at. I thought that was the high beam, but it's not. And this is the high beam down here. And then that's just a ring light, which, you know, kind of makes it look good, I guess. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to use this thing here, this level. And I'm trying to get the bubble to show whenever I point the light across the room, and get it so it only drops about 3 inches, and my garage is about 24 feet wide, so I think it's supposed to drop about 5 inches and 32 feet. So I'm basically trying to shoot it straight across. I hear that these Mini Cooper lights point at the ground and you can't see anything, and the other issue is that these low beams up here are non-adjustable, and the high beam is adjustable, so I'm trying to go off the low beam. So I stuck this light inside this shelf here in my shop. I got it shooting all the way across the whole entire shop, and I have it sort of leveled up the way I think it would be in the fender. And if I stick this level on here, I don't know if you can see that, I got it to where I can see the bubble. So that's the angle that I want to use when I stick it into the front of my truck. And where it's pointing at, it's pointing over there at the wall, and I have a piece of tape over there, so I'm getting a little bit of a drop. As you can see, it's kind of leaning off to the right. This is the right side light, and it looks like it's going to have sort of a V to it, because when these headlights are on the Mini Cooper, they're sort of rounded to the outside, and I'm going to have them sort of, you know, straightened out somewhat. So I have two paneling rings, and one of them I cut a chunk out of, and that's because the area on the inside of the fender there towards the nose, it's or towards the grill, it's a little bit high, and so I'd have to have it dip down to the headlight right there, and the rest of it would blend pretty good except for on the upper side towards the grill. I'd have to build that up some and blend it back into the fender. And I think that's the way I'm going to go. Otherwise, I'd have to cut it from the grill and make it go down more at a radius over to the light, which I don't know if that's worthwhile or not. I'll think about that. But you can see that the light is sort of tilted with the top out to the right on this Mini Cooper, and here I'm thinking about more having it like straight. I don't know if I can get it to blend in right if I have it tilted like this. And depending on how accurate I am, I may have to take the beam and tilt the beam a little bit so that it's not blinding people who are on the ground. So here's the piece of the Mini Cooper that I cut off, and as you can see, there's a real thick amount of plastic on there that I didn't realize was there. And this is on the passenger side, and I already fixed the driver's side, so I didn't even realize that was there. Hopefully when I cut away at it, which I'm probably going to take the majority of this out of here, that I'll get rid of that. Well, you can kind of see how this is fitting on the driver's side. You can see right there, it's up quite a bit. I'm going to have to drop the steel down to meet that ring. But other than that, it's fitting pretty good. I'd say it's pretty close to the majority of it. Maybe right here where the seam is, might have to drop down in there a little bit also. But the rest of it, I'm really surprised it's fitting even better than what I thought. So I don't know if I'm exactly on the position, but I'm going to drill some holes and try to see if I'm in the right spot. Drill the holes from the other side, and then I'll drop this back in again. So I gave myself about a finger's worth between the line I drew and the holes that I drilled into the fender. Not sure you see, I guess you can see those. But it looks like that's a pretty good location, which I had originally picked out, and I'm glad of that because that gets me the right angle for the headlight. Okay, so there's the rough cut hole. I left about a ½ inch all the way around it. Like I say, it really takes some commitment to cut a giant hole in your antique fender. Maybe I should be committed for cutting a giant hole in my fender. Okay, I got it in there and I think this is straight. This is what my guess is. I'm going off of that hole and that hole in there, if you could see that. And I only cut out the material on the right side to try to match as best I could, because there's a gap in here. I'm going to have to meet that. That's a little bit dark. You can see how it doesn't match in there. I'm going to have to bring that material down, so it's going to be kind of sunk in, and also up on the top it's going to be sunk in, and then down at the bottom a little sunk in. So it'll match on the outside, but not everywhere. And I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do the transition yet. I got to figure that out, if it's going to be fairly sharp or have sort of a radius. I don't know. Okay, now that I got it in there, I think I may have to cut that material away that's closer towards the grill and blend it, because I don't think it's going to look right if it drops over and down to meet the light with as much of it being flush as what I have. I mean, it's not going to be perfectly flush, and of course it's kind of hanging out of there. Hopefully it won't fall out while I'm filming this. It's only on with a piece of masking tape. But yeah, I think it has a nice contour to it. Matches pretty well. You can see how that matches in. But yeah, I got that big gap over there, and I think I'm just going to cut that whole piece out and blend it, hopefully. If it doesn't work, then I'll have to put it back on and do it some other way. So that's where I'm at right now. Have a good one.